Here we go. Mike Scarano here from the Fantasy Trail. Just wanted to say thanks for having a great season, even though mine wasn't right. Wait, was that a flag that just flew by? Perhaps a new tradition in Buffalo? I won't really get into it, guys. I just want to say that hopefully, like the lobster, or pardon me, the octopus in Detroit, we can continue this one every time we play the Patriots. Take it away, guys.
If this torpedoes my fantasy season because he got suspended for one game, I'm going to be so pissed. I mean,
I don't want to step on anyone's hot take, but I'm going to say this to you about the Gronkowski situation. I'm not stepping on it, am I, JT?
No.
JT, we suspended a man for 4 games for deflating the ball. Yet we're suspending 1 game and arguing about it for a man who purposely took a cheap shot giving another person a concussion because he held you on a play.
Although, was that the most?
What's more suspendable than that? He drove his forearm into the back of his head.
No arguments from me.
I don't want to step on your hot take, but I mean, it's a shame that that's 1 game, and Brady, a man who I detest, gets 4 games. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, we're coming out with a hot take. Again, this is the Fantasy Trail.
That was where I was going.
Is happy enough to join us. He made it back in just in time. We got Scarano dressed up. I will give him a second here to go put his toy back in his dresser drawer. And we got me and Tamala in the more comfortable white t-shirt. This is episode 14, the week 13.
What was that clap, Scarano?
I just love it. I made it out of a manila folder.
I don't even want to know. It's gonna look a little different as we wrap up the season. If you're joining us, you've probably been joining us for all year, and we appreciate that. We're gonna do a real quick recap of the last week. We'll go through some matchups for next week, the rankings and whatnot. But I'm also gonna at some point get into some fantasy fun, where I went through some numbers and kind of dug through the teams this year, and we'll have that at the end before the hot take. But Tamala, do you want to start us off with a quick recap of the games?
Right. First, we got Jake taking care of business again against Rich, 118 to 93. Look, Jake didn't have a great week. Wentz had a bad week. Murray, Julio, Brandon Cooks, and he still puts up a top 6 score.
I think Jake did what he did all year long. He had good performances from his players. Fantastic defense, fantastic kicker. He had the number 1 defense, and he had the number 3 defense. They stumbled a little bit the last couple weeks, and then the number 1 kicker. He rode positions that we normally don't think of. This matchup didn't end up mattering very much. Rich needed a win to maybe have a chance, but when Brian put up a huge score, it didn't end up mattering.
I think the one thing that I'll say about Rich is the Andrew Luck injury
kept him.
I mean,
yeah, that one did hurt him. Stafford was okay. He was the number 7 quarterback. He can't ask for much better than that. But
I find it just strange with the team that those 2 top positions that you were just referring to came from the Rams, who, if you would have asked me at the very beginning of the year, I think I would have said was one of the worst teams in football. And honestly, right now, I'd like for you to find 2 bad quarters in a row from the Rams, because you can't.
Yeah, playing well. Jake will look to continue to ride that. He's got a 3-game winning streak going into his bye, and Rich will be joining me and Mike in the losers bracket. What's up next, Mama?
All right, next we have Colin taking care of Angela, 143 to 81. Angela's team has just kind of fallen off the rails.
It's been on a major slide. And I think we're going to find that in the rankings. At first, Tamala, I was thinking about what you said last week and saying, look at the players, look at what's going on. This isn't going well. And then I was going back to me saying, well, she has a bye and I'm kind of leaning a little bit more with you, Matt.
Look, we'll get in the rankings. I'll tell you why I ranked her. But she's in trouble. The only thing, if she can squeak out a victory in the 2nd week of the playoffs, then Elliott comes back, and that will help Dak, hopefully. But, look.
There's one other thing that could really help her, and I'm not sure it's actually going to happen, and it's open for controversy. But from what I understood, wasn't Rodgers just medically cleared to return?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think she's got a few things that can help. I think she's got, like Tamala said, with Dak. I think, like you said, Scarano with the Jordy Nelson help with Rodgers. She also might get Robert Woods and Sterling Shepard back, with Eli maybe back out there. Giovanni Bernard could be taken over for Mixon if he's out for a little while. She's really been hurting. Lost 3 in a row. Looks like a rough squad all of a sudden. But she's got a week to get healthy and tinker with her lineup.
Look, Colin put up a huge score like he's done. We'll see what
yeah, tough team to play in the playoffs. Tough out, I would say.
Yeah.
Colin rode super good wide receivers and one good running back, and it's been a up and down formula for that this year. If his running back has a down game or if the wide receivers don't deliver, he struggles. But when they put up, he's had some of the biggest scores in the league. Keenan Allen's turned into an absolute star, number 3 receiver. AJ Green, we ripped on him a little bit last week. I said he was better. He's
so
number
hit
4.
or miss on him, JT. It's so hit or miss. You look at him; he's the number 4 receiver, and I was just looking at that, like, really. And then you look at some of these weeks. I mean, there's weeks where he puts up a 1.
So let's talk about that game because that'll bring us into our next matchup. AJ Green, he did most of that.
First quarter,
first half. I mean, he had one big touchdown called back in the second half. But you know what? If only Andy Dalton had put up another 0.3 of a point, Joel would have been able to pull a victory against Michael. It was 191.9 to 91.7. Closest matchup of the week by far.
You wait for like one of those correction adjustments. You're like, they happen sometimes where there's a slight correction. Very tight matchup, but Michael Thomas wins again.
Yeah, 2 things. Credit to him for calling out the horseshoe that's been stuck up his rear end all year, because he absolutely did. He finally even admitted it this week. And how about Joelle with a -3 from her defense and losing by 0.2 of a point?
Look, I do want you to consider this. You look at the Chiefs and you're saying the Jets, and I get it. Chiefs, if you wanted to, I don't know how to explain how a team could go. And in my opinion, in my power rankings, honestly, I had them as one of the number 1 teams in football to where they are now, where I don't think that they're going to beat the Chargers to win this division. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, it would have made a difference this week, but she has Justin Tucker on her bench. Special team player of the month.
Yeah.
I mean, he's put up.
And my only thing in defense of her was that she knew it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Her and I went down and we sat and we looked at it. There was nothing that was going to make a huge difference. So I don't think she looked at it with as much depth. And as we've talked about a few times, she had a better season than we thought.
Yes.
But understanding those nuances of kickers and defenses is not her specialty.
Okay.
So, that's going to be an area where that's going to be her downfall, where you and I might look at it and see that. I don't think she would as well, but she did better than I would have thought. 6 and 7. Had some really good pickups.
And again, it's a defense who if you would have asked me at the beginning of this year, again, the Jets are a surprise team. I would have said that they were an absolute train wreck, and I would have predicted them to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they're clearly not.
But I mean, I want to give Joel a lot of credit because, I mean, when Rodgers went down, we all wrote her team off. And she's hung in there tough. I mean, she's played it right.
I forgot it's gotten to the point where I forgot she had Rodgers. That's true. I wonder what would have happened to her season if she could have had him all year.
Like I think we ranked her last.
Yeah, we did.
There's a point where she was ranked last. You're correct.
She's made the right move. She stayed with it. I mean, I don't think she has anything. I mean, take Toronto, losing David Johnson. I mean, there's just sometimes you're just behind
Pryor and Cooper, first 3 picks. But I stayed with it, and that's actually what I was going to say.
Doesn't count.
What?
You traded one. Cooper.
He's terrible.
You traded him. You didn't lose him.
Terrible. Listen, I'm not saying they all got injured.
One good week.
I'm not saying you had one good week. I'm not saying they all got injured. I'm just saying that in the first 3 picks, I didn't make any reaches, and each one of them was an absolute train wreck.
Right.
And I hung tough. I use the waiver wire. I make trades.
Look what you've done. Look what you've done, Tamala. He relitigates this every week.
Solano, this is what I will say. You just about doubled up Casey, 141 to 88. You're still both buying pizza. So this is what I want to propose, and if anyone is watching, I want you to text into the show. I think they should bet pizza on their matchup this week. The loser buys all the pizza.
Who will explain this to me again? It just straight up points all of us?
No, you play Casey this week.
I play him again.
Yeah, you play him, as the two worst teams in the league. And just as a bet between the two of you.
Well, and I'll take him up on the bet very easily. My concern is that I sometimes pull a little bit of a gentleman's agreement as far as me using the waiver wire. But if you're going to tell me that all the pizza's going on this, I will be using the waiver wire because I try to give it to teams who matter.
Yeah, I think Scarano brings up a good point, and I like Brian's chime in, but I think he brings up a good point, which is as much as that's fun, and I love the idea behind it, there would have to be a discussion between him and Casey where they could work out a not touching of the waiver wire or something, because I would hate to see that affect actual playoff matches.
That's what I was going to say, is that I'll play the guys that I have, and I'll always put them into my lineup, even whether a game counts or not, and counts is a funny term. But if you're going to tell me that I'm actually spending money on this thing, I am going to have to hit up the waiver wire, guys.
No, okay. Yeah. But see, this is where I differ. I think if you're picking a player off the waiver wire just so I don't get him or one of the other teams in the playoff don't get him, yeah, I might have a problem with that. But if you're actually picking up a player to improve your team with your matchup, because you still do play for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, but why? It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything.
But it could take away from a team, and this is a concern because it could take away from a team who really does matter. One of the six to our league.
Totally. I don't plan on touching the waiver wire. I don't care who I'm playing or what.
I'll play my guys. I'll play whoever has the best matchup.
I'll play my guys, but I'm not touching the wire.
How does this sound to Casey? No waiver wire, but we could do add drop once the waivers have passed. Does that sound fair?
I don't think Casey watches, at least not currently.
I'm not even sure Casey watches football based on the way he had this season, but
we were talking about this in the hall. He says we just come on here and it's like an hour of smack talk about him.
Yeah, that sounds all right.
He talks a lot of smack, though.
All right. What's next, Mala?
Next, we have JT putting up the fourth highest score in the league with a 125, and getting destroyed by Brian with a
125 with also a -3. It was an Everett tradition this week.
I mean, listen, Brian's team is hot right now, man. Going into the playoffs, looking sharp, man. Yeah,
listen, ever since we gave him that bulletin board material a couple weeks ago, he has just been spitting hot fire.
And so it was surprisingly with Cousins, a decent game, but, still throwing the 2 picks.
It's a monster. It was so, I didn't have a chance anyway, but there was a point where I'd turn it off and I went out to do yard work. I came back in and I looked at it, and right as I came back in, Derrick Henry busted that 75-yard touchdown for meaningless. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to go get more yard work done.
And the talk JT, you'll find interesting, is that most of the talk is saying Kamara is going to be the offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I think that well-deserved. He's unbelievable. Best pickup, I have to give Brian. Definitely the best pickup. Number 3 back in the entire league, and Brian picked him up off the waiver wire. The guy wasn't even really playing for the first 3 weeks.
Still somewhat splitting time. It's amazing.
Incredible. All right, and wraps this up. Tamala, do you want to throw up the rankings, or do you want me to do that?
Well, no, there's one more matchup.
You missed one more matchup, my friend.
The Patriots versus the Bills.
No.
I take down Henry. 123 to 72.
Sorry, Haley. I tried to skip it.
Look, I mean, is what it is.
Hey, Tamala, what does SSPD stand for?
Suspended.
Oh, okay.
What's that L next to Tyrod Taylor's name? Oh, right, a loss.
No, it's a Q. He's got an injury.
Listen, I certainly understand it, but listen, Tamala, and I'm sorry to say this, you won our little side bet that we had going here. And yes. I also want to say that Tamala, although this is your fantasy player, I think you're going to have, and Patriots fans in general, I will tell you this. You have a difficult time telling me he doesn't need to be suspended.
Oh, no, he absolutely did.
Yeah, there's no arguments from you're not.
I don't even mind a little bit of fisticuffs. I don't mind a little bit of cussing out or anything that you think that you're doing that people consider to be so bad. I don't like blatant cheap shots.
Yeah, but no. You know, honestly, I think he should have been suspended for 2 games. But
yeah,
especially because this game is against Miami and whatever. But 2 weeks from now it's Pittsburgh. That would have really hurt a lot more.
But this will have an effect on your fantasy team, Tamal, and I will say that absolutely.
I also have to say I would have never guessed that we would win this bet if Brady had an 8.
Yeah.
Well, it depends if you told me Tyrod had a 3. I'm sorry, Haley. I love you to death, kid. You can't bet with the homer.
All right. Rankings, do you want me to throw them up tomorrow, or can you do it from yours?
I don't. Let me make sure I'm presenting.
Oh, yeah, you got them. Or you did.
There we go. All right.
There you go.
All right. So, end of the regular season. These were the final rankings. Jake has the best record. Basically 100% winning record. And Scarano and Casey are tied with a 0.231% winning record. All right. 12th place, Casey. Then Rachel. Then Scarano.
A high point I add. A high point right there, my friend.
Joel, Rich, and JT comes in at number 7. Now we're getting to the top.
Outside looking in. First one out. Last 3 in.
Michael comes in at number 6.
This is interesting.
Comes in at number 5. Colin comes in at number 4. There was a tie for second place between myself, Brian.
Wow.
Jake is clearly the number 1. All right, so this is the rank.
Notice it doesn't have the bye weeks. We have a change in narrative from last week.
All right. One thing I did add, I added the preseason rankings.
I like it.
The colors are just because they were there and I didn't have it. Jake started at the season number 1. He ended number 1.
Look at that.
JT, you started number 7. You ended number 7.
It's disappointing.
Look, okay, so let's get to our rankings. One thing, I had Angela 4th. She cannot end the season any worse than 4th. I think her season will end next week.
That's not what I was looking at.
That's why I ranked her number 4.
I just looked at it as of the 6 teams that are remaining. Where do I think she is? I think Scrown was doing the same thing. We both looked at it as
and I want to say that I kind of looked at it like if I were in the playoffs, and I know I'm not, and it's an outside looking in again. Who would I want to play? Rank them in this manner. I understand she has the bye week, and it matters a lot.
We were really very close across the board. There was only one thing that stood out. That was Tamala's ranking of himself. Who would have ever thought?
Yes. Little playing around with Michael Thomas, and I put him at the 5, and I'm just sorry. Look, I understand that every statistic says otherwise. He's like the Tim Tebow of fantasy football, but he does keep winning.
Hey, Casey, I know you're not watching, but we noticed we ranked you at number 5 in the preseason, jerk. And you went ahead and delivered a 12, so way to go.
All right. So, JT, you ranked Brian number 4, who he just clearly put up the high score of the week by 30 points.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays Michael.
I'm still looking at the year long, and I'll be honest, I put a lot of stake into my composite rankings. I think that he and Colin could have been a toss-up at 4 and 3, but I think that you and Jake for a year long definitely have the best with your point totals and your wins. And I really look at this next slide you're about to show the most. I'm sure part of that is just because I put the time into making it myself. But, Brian was 12-12 on the year and had a lot of weeks where even though he dominated, like against me, there were other weeks where he was sneaking in wins. He was one of the most. He had 4 different times where he would have lost to the majority of teams in the league. The only person that beat that was Michael, who had it, I think, 5 different times. And I think his squad is fantastic when all cylinders are cooking. Stupid Tyreek Hill, when he decides to go off, is great. Kamara is wonderful. I can't argue that he's a really good squad, but I think the top 4 are great. I think all 4 of you have a very good chance to win. I do not think that Michael or Angela has a very good shot to win. So I don't know. I don't think anybody in the top 4 is ranked poorly.
Okay.
Look, I'm disappointed we have divisions, and I'd be number 2 in the league, and I'm 5th.
The only thing that hurts my argument for making this move is that it didn't change a single bit of playoff making, although it would have made different playoff seeding.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll have this as Exhibit A next year, but I would like to cite the fact all the blue and all the red. There is a lot of movement. It certainly makes an effect. I would argue the no divisions needs to be addressed for sure, and I would like to continue pushing something to do with more involved scoring with points.
Yes, and I also just want to say, in looking at this, that I want you to take this idea that I understand it didn't affect it. Do you feel that it didn't affect it just by circumstance, or do you feel that it didn't affect it because it shouldn't affect it? My point being is that, okay, this time it didn't affect it. Start to look at the total record here. Look, I understand that. I'm trying to think of a good way to word it. It didn't happen this time. All it takes is one person in and one person out where they shouldn't have been in or out. And I think you really have to start examining our scoring system.
But, you look at Ange, who has the bye this week. She wouldn't have had a bye.
Okay, and that's huge.
Yeah, it's huge, especially with where her team's at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have definitely made some things affected, but it wouldn't have made the amount that I would have guessed at the beginning of the year. I would have thought people would have been making the playoffs that shouldn't have been, and vice versa. I think it would have made some larger difference.
If I put it this way, JT,
it still has a case.
If I run this test, if we run this and we do this for 10 years, how many times do you think it'll have an effect of people being in and out?
Well, it didn't. Really there wasn't really an effect until the first week 8, I think.
Yeah, because you got some games under your belt. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, if Brian hadn't won this last week, our rule place that we put instead with the final 2 teams getting NBA points would have made more of a difference, and Rich would have had a real gripe because he would have had a better record and would have lost out on making the playoffs. And the same thing could have happened for Joel or I, and or Brian for that matter. But as it turned out, it didn't. But that would have been the only one I would have been sad to see, where if it would have cost somebody something, but it didn't. So I don't know. I like it. I like looking at that.
It's interesting. I always find this screen to be the most interesting one. And there's just a couple numbers that I always go to. I can't help but look at the points allowed. And I have a problem with the term allowed, by the way. You allow nothing.
Nah. Well, screw that. That brings me to my little piece here. Tamala, do you mind if I run with this for a second?
Yeah.
All right. You can still broadcast because I think it's people that are going to be seeing this for the most part. That's all good. I just ran through some fun things today. The most points in the league and the least points in the league against. I do points against Mike instead of points allowed. I believe that's what it stands for. But anyway, that's not the point. I just think this is interesting. Most points against was Brian. He was the 6th seed. He barely snuck in the playoffs. Second most points against was Casey. He was the 11th seed out of the playoffs. Third most points against me, 7th seed out of the playoffs. Fourth most points against Rachel, 10th seed out of the playoffs. Fifth most points against Scarano, 12th seed out of the playoffs. So of the top 5 points against, Only one made it into the playoffs. We have no control over that. Kind of a bummer. With that said, you go to the other one, least points against. And I know this is skewed, so I understand, but I'm just presenting this side. Michael, number 1 least points against, a 3 seed. Jake, number 2 least points against, a 1 seed. Colin, a 4 seed. Tamala, a 5 seed. Angela, a 2 seed. All the 5 least points against made the playoffs. Only one of the most points against made the playoffs. That's my argument for why we need to have a progressive scoring system.
So next, it's a much better argument than what we were explaining before. This is fascinating to me.
You know what I would be interested in then? What would the standings have looked like if we did not take head-to-head into account at all?
Just points-based?
Top 6 for that week.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to go back and look at it, but I did have 2 more stats that went off of this going along with Michael, and it's really not to rub it in. I want to preface this again by saying I think he's a fantastic owner, and good for him.
And I think he has a potential to keep winning.
Yep, and I think I've certainly had some luck myself. But if you take Brian's points against, the number 1 most points against, and you subtract Michael's points against, the least points against, it was 372 points.
Divide that by 13.
I divided that by 13. That is 29 points a game, Mike.
That's winning and losing. I'm sorry. That's everything. That's a player going off. It's everything.
I mean, so if Brian is playing against Michael, he's got a 29-point advantage every week. That's insane.
Think of that as a point spread. If we had point spreads here, which I guess they show on the, when you do the matchup app, think about a 29-point spread. Think about that in any type of game. It's madness.
So let's say you're looking at that and you go, "Oh, JT, you're skewing it. Why don't we look at something a little more, realistic?" Because Brian had the most points against. Okay, well, Michael had the least points against. Jake had the second least points against. If you took the difference between Michael and Jake, it was 156 points, which still divided by 13 is 12 points per game.
That's a win and a loss right there. Start giving me 12 points per game, and I'm probably in the playoffs, guys.
Every single team had at least 12 more points per game than Michael. So that to me,
that's amazing. That's amazing.
And he's
Michael Thomas, dude. I love you, kid, man. But dude, the horseshoe is up there, man.
Yep. So that's my argument to change the system. A couple little small news and notes built on that. In the final week, every single person in Division 1 was victorious, defeating every single team in Division 2. If you look at the streaks on the right-hand side, you'll notice they are all W's on Division 1 and all L's in Division 2. I think that actually sounds nice.
Put that L5 down the bottom.
Yeah, looking good. With that said, Michael, who had the much harder division, we just see that, the better records, beating the other division, was 5-0 in his own division. Which is astounding. He managed to just catch everybody at their worst week. Even the best teams, he caught them at their worst week. So good on that. Both Brian and Scarano were 1-5 in that division. So Brian to make the playoffs, Scarano obviously not. That's amazing that he made it in. Brian really beat up on the other guys. Mm-hmm. And then Angela, she took care of business against her division. She was 4-1. And that's what snuck her in, even though her team wasn't as good. Whereas Casey, well, his team sucked and he was 0-5.
Yeah, but I mean, Angela was also 5-2 against, the other division. So I mean,
no, that's home and away.
You have to just take the other game. You just have to subtract from the actual record.
Yeah, I see where you're at.
She was 4-3 against the other division. So she was okay, still a winning record, but not as good. Anyway, it really does play out. The divisions made a difference. I was making an argument there that I think the divisions need to be eliminated. I have 2 more things. I have the low scores of the year.
Oh boy!
I would like to present this in bronze, silver, and gold. In bronze for lowest of the year, it was Casey in week 1 with a 66.5. Congrats, sir. Well done. In silver, in week 6, we had 61.4. Scarano, congratulations on your silver medal this year. Well done. And for gold, Michael in week 3, 52.2.
And
the
make
lowest
the playoffs, my friend.
in the league.
Which has an effect on
Interesting.
some of those scores, though, because it's a loss. You know what I mean? Like, it's one loss, and then
That's right.
the other
Yep.
week.
And so that may skew things. And then I went in reverse. Colin, congrats on your bronze medal. You had 167 points in week 2. Jake, congrats on your silver medal. You had 170.8 in week 12. And Brian, against me this last week, put up the high score of the league with 172.3.
With that being said, all 3 of those teams are playoff teams.
Yep, well deserved. They got to put up scores like that. The last thing I highlighted was a player high at each position. So the highest scoring QB, wide receiver, running back, tight end, kicker, and defense, not cumulatively, but just in 1 week. Scarano last week, Alex Smith with a 41.6 was the highest QB score of the year. Jake the week before with Julio and a 44.8 was the highest wide receiver score of the year. Tamala, this one's going to hurt, buddy. I'm sorry. Kareem Hunt in week 1 was the highest running back score of the year. I don't believe
Here.
43.1. Tamala, you also have the highest scoring tight end. I found this to be fascinating. Only 23.4 was the highest scoring tight end game of the year. That says something about how that position maybe isn't as good as we thought. Highest scoring kicker game was Jake with Greg Zerline, 27 points in week 4.
Fantastic year from him.
And matching that was Colin with the Jags D, which had 27 points in both week 1 and week 5.
There you are. I like that.
So there you go.
All right. I seem to, what was it, 22.3 or 23.2 for the tight end?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say I had several scores within a point or two of those between Kelsey and Gronk.
There were a lot of 20s and 19s, and it wasn't just Kelsey and Gronk. It was a couple of other ones. But
Lenny Walker wasn't on there at all?
No, he didn't have that good of a year. He had 1 game of 19. And I could easily have missed something. I didn't go through this incredibly close, but I did look pretty.
Looks like you've been doing your homework, JT. I'm impressed here.
Yeah, there you go, buddy. Glad you liked it. And Haley, I'll be honest, I could not get into the lowest score because that meant I would have had to open up every single game, and I just didn't have the heart to do that.
So let's just say the Cowboys at not -6.
I think that's probably the winner.
I think some of Haley's -3s could have come into effect here. Sorry, Cussy.
All right, so moving on. We have this week coming up. We have Casey taking on Scarano. No one cares. We have Rachel taking on JT. No one cares.
Nope.
And we have Rich taking on Joel. No one cares.
Right.
The first matchup we're going to talk about is Brian taking on Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, he's still hoping Kelvin Benjamin will play.
That was a healthy scratch.
Yeah, I mean,
look, here's what I'm going to say. Brian's team looks hot. This team looks better, but I'm going to say this. He finds a way to win.
But Michael hits 2 solid quarterbacks on Michael's team. But you don't like Newton against Minnesota. You don't like Roethlisberger at Baltimore or playing Baltimore. I might take him at home. I might take him at home too.
Well, I'm saying if you made me pick between him and Newton, I might take Roethlisberger at home. Newton, it's so erratic. You have no idea. You know what his average pass yards was this week? 7 yards per pass. They're babysitting him. He's one of the strongest arms in football.
I think
they both have players.
Oh, go ahead.
They both have players playing Monday night, so this one might go all the way till Monday.
Yeah, there's some things to be determined. You got Abdullah might be coming back. You might throw him in. Alex Collins injured. You mentioned the Benjamin one. I'm curious here. They currently have Michael favored by a little bit, and he is favored in almost every position except for Kamara and Crowder. If you would have told me that ahead of time, I would not have believed it. I think Brian has to be the favorite going in here.
Brian it was 170 points, and Michael put up like 91 last week.
Yeah, Yeah, and I just don't see a lot of help on Michael's bench if Benjamin is going down. I know he's got waiver wire to go through. Whereas Brian, if he makes it a couple weeks, gets Zeke in, he's got Abdullah, he's got Henry, he's got Coleman. I mean, he's got Powell. He's got choices.
Yeah. And the scary thing is, Rogers is back at practice. We kind of scoffed at Brian making that pickup a couple weeks ago. Right around when Elliott suspension was coming down, we're like you're going to need him.
I just would be concerned if I'm the Green Bay Packers, and this is not the fantasy side, this is the real football side. I don't think you're going too far with that team, and I wouldn't play him.
Right. Can you imagine Brian in the finals though, with the team he has right now, plus Aaron Rodgers and Zeke Elliott?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
wow.
Although the only thing you have to do is, with Rust. I mean, do you worry about that?
Rodgers might not be with Russ if he gets a couple weeks in, but Zeke would be. I think it's easier if you're running back to come back. I picked Brian in this one, but Michael has had the luck with him this year.
I agree with you. I think I just need to. I'm gonna go with Brian. Yes, you did lose Odell.
We have a loss of Odell Beckham. Look, he's played his team very well, and I'm not 100% sure that a rusty Rodgers compared to a healthy Cousins. I know how Cousins didn't have the greatest game last week, and he still covered it, but Cousins can be a beast any given week, man.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Brian, who you picking?
Now you, buddy. You.
Well, no, I want to who's Grano picking.
On this one, I'm going to go with Brian, and I am, and I know I'm looking at the records, and it's funny looking at Brian, having the losing record, and what we were just discussing with the points. Look, here's what I'm going to say, and this is my piece of advice to Brian: keep a very, very, very keen eye on that waiver wire. Your opponent is going to be on it, and he'll be effective. He'll put in more than one pick. He's going to be running it. I'm just telling you, man. Maybe even pick up people so other people don't get them. Keep an eye on this one.
Yeah. There we go. 3 for 3 towards Brian. And now Tamala.
All right.
This is what a matchup.
This is a vicious game.
The two highest scoring teams in the league.
Can I tell you my weekend is going to be ruined? Absolutely. I can tell you already I'm going to be upset. I'm not going to want to watch any football.
Why?
Because most of my team are late games. I have a lot of Sunday 425s. I have a lot of Mondays.
What are you doing about Gronk? You obviously slide Kelsey into tight end. Are you going to do Freeman into the flex spot?
I would.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's your best bet.
Listen, there might be some waiver wire moves right here. Does Olsen return?
Well, yeah, I think he'll be there. I don't like Dobson against the Chargers.
Steve Diaz looked very, very good lately. Joey Bosa's the real thing. I was somewhat thinking he might be a bust, and I was wrong.
And then you got Colin, who's made a couple interesting moves. He's taken out Keenum, who he's been riding lately. He took out Diggs, which is, wow. I understand he hasn't been as good in the last couple games, but he's a big name receiver to be taken out.
I was hearing something about Juju Smith-Schuster. Did you hear that he was suspended?
Yes.
Yep, he's suspended.
So, I mean, it has him on the bench it still has his points projected in the bench. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure he would have played for Colin anyway right now.
Look, I mean, he's got Keenan Allen, who's probably playing the best out of any receiver in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just coming off a monster game.
You have Gurley against a favorable Chicago defense.
Nope.
No. You have Green against the favorable Chicago defense. You have Gurley against the not favorable stout Philly defense.
Although, Seattle ran all over Philly this past week. So
tough. I'm going to say this, though, and I'm going to give your Birds credit here. Tough place to go, man. Tough place for a young quarterback to go.
They played a terrible game.
Tamal, I hate to say this because you've sandbagged yourself all year and you'll just use this as proof of us being wrong and you being right. But I actually feel that you are in a very tough place right now. You are cratering with Mr. Kareem Hunt, who has decided that he just doesn't like scoring points. And your boy Gronk going down hurts you double.
The Gronk suspension no doubt hurts you, Tamale.
Yeah, it hurts you double because it hurts your Brady and it hurts your.
Do any of you have any word about? I know he was trying to do some form of.
It got denied. Yeah, it got denied.
The only thing I can hope is that Brady's annoyed for only scoring 8 points last week, and he just goes crazy.
Yeah,
I could.
Miami's always been a tough place for him. I gotta go plug in. I'm gonna die.
I mean, if you look at it like this, listen, they still have a reason to really, really play right now. They want the number 1 seed in the AFC. He's going to play ball, man. He's going to play ball. I have no doubt in my mind Brady will have a good game.
Yeah, I don't worry. But Miami's been a tough place for him to play.
I'm not confident, but I have to pick myself over Colin. I can't.
Wow, the first time all year.
You
got to have confidence here. All right, I'm looking at it, and I think this one is going to be the tightest one of the week, and I am taking Matt Tamala in this game. What you're going to do is you're going to take out the 0 from Gronk. So let's not look at the line right now. Let's take out the 0 from Gronk. Let's put in his top player, and let's put in Freeman. I don't think Freeman gets 14. Let's say Freeman matches Gronk at an 11. Gets an 11. I think that puts them at a dead heat right there. I'm not hot on Jameis Winston. I just don't think he was everything he was. I know Keenum, tough. He's going on the road. I see better quarterback play from Matt, and I think he pulls this one off.
Interesting. In my looking through this, I believe that much like the HGTV show, our final is going to come down to brother versus brother. I think it's going to be a Colin-Brian final, and I think Brian is going to have the deck stacked with Rodgers and Zeke, and I think Brian's going to take it.
You're not projecting. You're taking Jake out of this one, I've noticed. So you're going all the way. So you're taking Colin here. Now, I do have one question for you, JT, and maybe you could just provide some clarity. So these 2 games go, right? Who does each one play? Does it? How do they match up? Does one go, who goes to Angela, and then who goes to Jake?
Colin and Tamala winner goes to Jake.
Yes.
And yeah, I loved his face on that one. And Brian and Michael winner goes to Angela. That's why I think Brian's.
And that's where you're putting more faith into Brian right there.
Brian's a genius somehow. He's an accidental genius. He stumbled into the 2 lowest scoring teams in the playoffs and the 2 teams we all ranked at 5 and 6
but had the highest scores against him all season.
So now would it be better next year if we reseed each round of the playoffs?
Like the NBA does.
Yeah.
No, because I think that we could fix some of the issues we have with what's happened right now with other ways where we wouldn't need to.
You're saying elimination of the divisions of the more progressive scoring system is going to immediately set this up in a more equitable manner.
Correct.
All right, I'm on that
Michael
one.
shouldn't be the 3 seed and shouldn't be the 2 seed. That's what's setting this up. That's the problem.
Yeah. But I would love to see what it would be with just top 6 scores, no head-to-head matchups, and see what the rankings would have looked like then.
Yeah, I can.
I know you can't pull it. Yeah.
I could certainly take a look at it because it's really not going to be.
Maybe by next week.
I can try and pull that down.
All right. Yeah.
That's the preview. These are going to be some huge games. Super excited. Guys, I will say that I'm going to take a gentleman's agreement. And I kind of would like some other people to kind of just join me with this one in the league. If you are out of the playoffs, I'm going to ask that using the waiver wire isn't really cool. And I'm also going to say that the other reason I don't think it's cool is because I feel that this is very easy for one to get in cahoots with others.
Yeah, I'm not touching it.
I'm buddies with a playoffs team and have a higher waiver order. I could take someone off the board so an opponent doesn't get them.
Can we pull, and I know we can, I just don't know where it is off of my head, waiver claims or how many moves you've made?
I can try and pull it up in the LM tools.
Honestly, because, Scron, I have not made one waiver claim all year.
Okay. Look at a trade between non-playoff teams, Rachel, I think would be fine. But what I'm trying to say is that I feel this is a very, very, very easy cahoots one. If I want Brian to win and I want him to pick someone up, can I just go – and I want him to win, can I pick up someone before his opponent can?
Okay, here we go, Tamala. Joelle has the number 1. You have the number 2. So I think that's about right. I don't think she made a waiver claim all year either. She always waited to the weekend to make her moves. So you would get anybody you want because I know she's not going to touch anybody. And then it goes Rachel, Casey, though. So there's 2 teams that could screw with some people. Angela, then me, then Rich. So a lot of the people that can't get in.
With Brian and Michael being at the very bottom, which is a one that you really, really, really want to keep an eye on.
But, look, we haven't had any trouble with this league lately. I don't think anyone. I think the people who make the moves are the ones who make the moves. There was a reason I haven't made any waiver claims all year. I was just waiting for Des Bryant to get dropped, week 8, so I could pick him up.
I do have I do have the I do have the standings for most acquisitions, most drops, most activations, most IRs. Okay. I can't see that in the transaction counter. Does anybody, you want to hear those real quick?
Very quickly, I'm interested.
Okay, most acquisitions. The Michael Thomas, 30.
Absolutely. That's
and they always winning.
Part of him winning is that.
Yep. And
so what, like 2.5 a week?
Yeah, approximately. Yeah. And right behind that is me and Brian with 29. Right behind that is Colin with 28, and then Scarano with 27.
Which is all real tight right there. Let's not fool ourselves. That's really tight.
The lowest amount of transactions were Rachel with 7, Casey with 8, Angela
with 10. Any bills.
Yeah, Angela with 10 and Joelle with 11.
Where was I?
Not trying to make a judgment here, but all 4 of those are ladies. Take that, Casey.
But you did, Jay. But you did.
It was more of a joke at Casey's expense.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. Thank you.
Activations, just in terms of messing around with your lineup, this is staggering. The number 1 in the league is double almost what everybody else is. The number 1 is Brian with 106 activations.
Oh, but that includes bringing his whole team to the bench and then bringing them back.
Doing it. Behind that is Colin with 78, so good 30 behind. Behind that is Michael with 60, me with 53, you with 56. So very interesting there. The least amount was Ange. Ange only made 23 activations all year.
Still won the division.
23. Brian did 83 more moves.
No, but I want to subtract a good 15 or so from that.
So be it.
His antics on during the last broadcast.
Yeah. True.
Okay. I want to activate the players. See if I can tie Ryan.
Make some moves right now. All right, fellas, you want to wrap this up?
Yeah. Who's doing the hot take first?
Someone is taking over from the hot take, and I really, really, really like it. I want to see someone else do one. Love it.
Yes.
Can't wait.
I am from the couch with a dying computer. Gonna do the hot take real quick here. So All right, ladies and gentlemen, this won't be nearly as polished. I don't have any props, and I'm certainly not wearing a freaking tie. But I do have to say that I enjoy fantasy, and I think this got brought up last year, significantly more for the camaraderie that comes out of it right now than I do for the football. I really enjoy our chat. I enjoy the trash talk. I enjoy watching people scheme. I enjoy the matchups every week. I enjoy this very much. I enjoy people commenting on it. I enjoy seeing people on the weekends and talking about fantasy. But the actual Sundays have lost a great deal of luster for me. And it's consistently going down every single year. As a Bills fan, I get a little excited for Bills games when they're still in it early in the season, like I used to. But I still just can't bring myself to watching fantasy the same way. I don't have NFL Sunday ticket, and I do not have Red Zone for the first time in my life. And I think a good portion of that goes back to what I saw last night. And I was sitting there doing some work, and I had the game streaming on my computer, and I watched Ryan Shazier Crutterbray, by poor tackling technique, to be honest, unfortunately. And it was so awful to watch, and it really it made me sick when he rolled over and looked like he couldn't feel his legs and his arms were up. And I don't know, I feel like you see a few of those per game. I just can't enjoy football the same way anymore. When I'm watching my guys, especially a running back, I hope he breaks this for a touchdown. I hope he doesn't break something. And I feel like that's how I watch the Bills now, too. That's how I watch Tyrod Taylor. That's how I watch McCoy. I'm just wanting there to get up. Guys, it seems like per game, just get carted off with injuries. So my point is that as much as I enjoy this, I'm worried that it's going to become something where it becomes a video game for me. And I don't even watch the sport anymore. And I'm just shuffling around names more so than I am enjoying the sport. And I think that's when it becomes something that I'm not sure I like the same way, because I lose that human element. And I think I'm also nostalgic for the time when I used to like football as much as I liked fantasy. So I guess I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing, but as we come to the conclusion of this year, I'm still looking forward to next year, but it's for many different reasons than I have been in the past.
Well said, JT.
Great, JT. I love your hot takes, sir. Excellent.
But again, fellas, I enjoy doing this very much. It's something that even if I'm sitting around going, oh, I'm tired, I don't know if I'm going to make this one tonight, I always find myself enjoying it very much as I can. And I did like listening to the podcast even when I missed it. So Tamala, thank you for making that possible.
Excellent, fellas. With that being said, we're going to sign off here, gentlemen.
Good luck to the 4 teams playing.
Signing off. Great hot take, JT. I love that you took one.
All right. Talk to you, buddy.
See you later, fellas.
Bye, guys.
Till next time, gentlemen.